That's a great question. I think both sides are right, and that's the long tension we see in strategy. I think the investors and the Goldman Sachs, the investment bankers, are looking at the value creation side. No doubt, Deliveroo and many other economies looking at this last mile convenience for the consumers deliver a lot of value. But investors are actually looking at the other spectrum, which is value capture. Means how is this value going to sustain in the long term, given the current infrastructure, given how the employment is configured, and also the long-term growth. For example, this is a model viable potentially within the metropolitan area. How do it grow from here? And I think that long tension is going to sustain. I would concur with some of the other analysis around the anxiety of the investors. But I think more important thing for us to look at is across different regions, can we compare what's happening in the US, compare what's happening in China, and learn what could happen in Europe when it comes to the long-term business model.
I guess one of the mistakes that people make is they often use Amazon as a comparison, and they say, well, look at the Amazon model. For years, it didn't make money. It wasn't profitable, but it succeeded at gaining market share. And look at Amazon today, one of the most profitable and valuable companies in the world. And yet for every Amazon, there are thousands of companies that fail. Do you think the fact that Deliveroo is also not profitable yet is one of the reasons that investors are shying away? People are placing more emphasis today on predictability of cash flows into the future.
Exactly. I think this is a very challenging time. Therefore, the investment philosophy might be different for different people. For me, from a strategic point of view, it is important to see across region and the different models. If you look at digital business model in general, the philosophy is let's get to the scale. And therefore, even if you have a low margin business, you can still become quite profitable. That's what we see in the action with Amazon, you rightly pointed out. But the route to that profitability may differ across region and may differ across business. For example, in China, we've seen that huge battle around ride sharing, where Didi and Grab in Southeast Asia has invested a lot of money to grab that market share and ultimately driven Uber outside of the region to gain that market share. And that same battle is going on with the online to offline business, which is very similar to Deliveroo. So you see JD, Ali, and many other, Meituan, are actually fighting for that market share through a lot of investment capital behind the infrastructure establishment. It's similar to US, but US has a more homogeneous market and a homogeneous infrastructure across different states. That's why you see the reaction to DoorDash IPO is different from what we see in Deliveroo. I can give you an example on this. Investment is quite interesting. When I was in Spain, in Barcelona, you actually see the delivery worker using a trolley, with a three-wheel trolley, to climb the stairs to deliver some of the foods. Therefore, when we think about how this type of business grow in Europe, we need to consider how patient is the capital going to be and how much investment it is needed for the infrastructure. And the second piece certainly is the employment piece. I think we can see the court actions and the appeal actions in Europe, in the US, that people tend to think differently. So here I would call out the who and the what, right? So who are the gig workers? In China, it kind of worked because they employed a lot of migrant workers. The healthcare benefit and the better lifestyle will ensure there's value capture for those population. It may not be the same case with Europe, where some of the countries at least have universal healthcare. In the US, it's going to be a long-term challenge because many of the gig workers will opt for this flexibility of working. When I was in the US 2 years ago, I was riding with an Uber driver. He basically said, I don't need a healthcare coverage because my wife has it, her whole benefit. Well, I can actually take this flexibility. But in the longer term, that cost is still coming back to either individual or corporate or the society. So I think it is very interesting to compare the region. They're not all the same of the different business. Right. In Europe, we need to look at the European situation and assess the long-term viability.